Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar on navigating the future of fintech. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting two distinguished experts in the field who will be sharing their insights on the revolutionary impact of AI on data privacy and risk mitigation. Our first speaker is Ms. Anjali Gugle, a seasoned privacy and data security professional speaker with many years of experience in the field. Our second speaker is Tony Bree, a renowned fintech expert and author of several books on the subject and columnist for Financial Management. It's a Dutch magazine and columnist on riskcompliance.nl. Tony has more than 20 years of experience in the financial industry. Well, first, some house rules. Well, you plan the webinar for 60 minutes. Each speaker presents for about 10 minutes. And after that, there are 5 minutes for some questions and answers. You can drop questions in the chat box you see on the right side top, and our team will forward these to the speaker for answering them. So don't be shy, just ask. I will be the last speaker this time. When we have finished, we have, I hope, about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So now, without further ado, I introduce Ms. Anjali Gugle as the first speaker. Anjali, you have the floor.
Thank you, Frans. Andrew, you want to start sharing the slides? Thank you so much. So today the topic is how to really maintain privacy with AI usage in fintech industry. So this talk is not a GDPR or a privacy law overview, but it is in the context of privacy, how to use it in the fintech industry which are AI intensive. We will examine the impact of consumer privacy regulations on financial companies which are using AI ML for automated decision making and profiling the customers. We will outline the operational impact on the data subject rights for all the data controllers and processors which are touching the financial data. I will discuss how really privacy regulations can hinder AI and development and innovation. I'll quickly step through the benefits and implications of AI on privacy in fintech industry and highlight methods for the audience to really balance privacy, how to really balance privacy and AI methods, which can help the companies which are using AI ML for automated decision making profiling to develop solutions which are really privacy aware and generate value both for the data controllers, the companies, and the data subjects as well. So let's find out how can really AI and privacy be friends or remain foes forever. So Andrew, can I request you to go to the next slide? Yeah. So this disclaimer essentially is all this is my personal opinion and does not reflect any views or opinions of my current employer. And that takes us to the next slide. So this is a slide for all of you to ponder, who are the audience in the webinar, is that do you really have control over how much data or how much personal information is collected from you when you are using online applications? Will you ever buy a product for a company which you do not trust? And do you really want to live in the society which, there is less ethics and more bias in this? And if you are, if the answer is no, then I think this talk is going to be really beneficial to you, because these questions are really, really important, that we all understand that do we really have control over the personal information which is collected from us? Do we really know the privacy policies or the privacy disclosures? Do we really read them carefully? And are we really ready to buy the financial product for these companies? So if the answer is no, then this session is going to be beneficial to you. So that takes us to the next slide. So as you see here, the picture shows 17 different payment industry high profile data breaches which really had a high impact. So data breaches really increase the concern about exploitation of consumers in our consumer data. The number, the size, the amount of data breach has really risen exponentially with the growth of internet commerce, e-commerce, and data proliferation in general. So we all are aware that 2018 was the year of was very relevant to data privacy After the Snowden leaks in 2013, GDPR was introduced in May of 2018, and then it was consequence of couple of key scandals like Cambridge Analytica, which exploited Facebook user data. When it comes to laws in the financial world, we have the financial institutions are required to take steps to protect their privacy consumers under the federal law called GLBA, Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act, or also called the Financial Modernization Act of 1999. FTC is one of the federal agencies that enforces provisions of GLBA, and it has couple of rules like the financial privacy rule, which governs the financial institutions when they collect and disclose consumer data. And then there is a safeguard rule as well, which will require all the financial institutions to safeguard the customer information. There are a few more provisions related to consumer data, like gaining access to consumer financial information under false pretext as well. So all this tells us that the clamor over consumer data privacy is becoming stronger day by day, and decision-making processes is increasingly data-driven. On the very basic level, the people, the consumers, the data subject, they do understand that there are trade-offs when they are using digital services, but many of them are really oblivious as to how much data, how it is collected, how it is used, is it shared, whom is it shared with, is it sold, and all those kinds of things, right? So as technology professionals or people who are aware, we need to be aware of this and understand it. And I can tell from my own experience that we technology professionals, researchers in AI and privacy world need to find really the privacy preserving mechanisms, because it is urgent and one of the biggest challenges today. So as the slide says, the quote says that on the internet, if you are not paying for it, even if you don't buy the product, you are not the customer. Your data is still getting being sold, and that's the reason we are here to find the balance between ethics and innovation. So that leads us into the next slide. Here we highlight the AI ML capabilities which are really transforming the financial sector. So financial sector is led by the financial technology, which we call Fintech companies, and that has been rapidly increasing. McKinsey report, I think the 2021 report says that the estimate of potential value of AI being used in the banking sector is around 1 trillion as well. So the key areas where AI capabilities are used are credit underwriting, investment management, banking services, and financial institutions. So if you really look at the slide, there are 4 different categories in the AI ML space. For example, forecasting. So in financial sector, machine learning algorithms are used in such areas like for forecasting, such as credit risk scoring, for example. Then there is a natural language processing module or a function, which is boosted by deep learning and statistical models. And the natural language processing is being used in the financial sector in applications such as chatbots, which can really reshape consumer or client experience, or in investing. We have seen the robo advisor as well. So some of the banks, I think the European Central Bank does use NLP and ML based technology to search information for supervisory review decisions, for example. Third category is image recognition. Facial and signature recognition is being used widely in some of the financial institutions and companies as well, which do assist in carrying out certain anti-money laundering detection, or even for identity verification to do the due diligence. And the intent is good to strengthen the security, overall system security. Lastly, I have the anomaly detection. So in the financial sector, classification algorithms can be applied to insider trading, for example, or credit card or for fraud detection. I think the Bank of Netherlands does use transactional data to detect a network for related entities to assess the exposure of financial institutions. So these are the AI capabilities, different areas which can help transform the financial sector overall. So as we see, there is increasing prevalence of AI in the fintech industry, and the intent is good. It is to reshape customer experience, improve client experience, for example, fraud detection, identity verification, and predictive analytics, essentially because that improves the overall customer experience. So that, but there are ifs and buts to that, and that takes us to the next slide. This slide, I have highlighted the risks, and I know this talk is about privacy, but security and privacy and risk management do go hand in hand. I have listed the risk which arise from the AI/ML usage in the financial world. I've categorized into 4 areas: data privacy, data security, explainability when it comes to the ML models, and lastly, the bias. So if you see here in the data privacy space, we have AI/ML. It does have the capacity, the models do have the capacity to unmask the anonymized data through inferences. They can deduce the identities from behavioral patterns. So that is a risk. AI/ML also can remember the information which you are using during while training the data sets. So that is another risk, information retention. Third is blurry the line of consent. So we all really look at consent, notice consent-based approach. We give our consent, but we don't really read everything, and then there is a blurry line of consent as to what you have consented to. So that may end up leaking sensitive data directly or by inference, for example. Then comes data security. So without security, privacy cannot be really achieved. So in the cybersecurity area, we have different kinds of attacks. Say, for example, data poisoning attack. So what does data poisoning attack do is it can influence AI/ML algorithm during the training stage to add special samples and skew the results, for example, and cause the attacks incorrectly or incorrect learning as well. Then there are input attacks which really allow the attackers to introduce their perturbations in the data inputs and mislead the AI systems as well. Then is the data model inversion attack. So in this model inversion or model extraction attack, what happens is the attacks attempt to recover the training data and input, and that can go in the wrong way because it aims to check whether specific data instance was in the training set. So they try to manipulate that. Then comes explainability of models. So this is really one of the biggest concerns in the AI industry, driven by regulations, because explainability really requires the financial institutions to explain the algorithm, explain how the algorithm is used, how the decisions are derived, and that is a problem because we'll see in the next slide why it is a problem. Because stronger explainability really might enable the outsiders to manipulate the algorithm, and individual predictions can change. So that is about explainability. Then comes the bias. So there is inherent bias in us, and that gets reflected into the training data, and it does affect the results as well. So that takes us. So these are the high-level risks. So we saw AI/ML transformation in financial industry and the risk it brings. So the next 2 slides will talk about this. We can go to the next slide. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so this slide briefly tells you that AI is the hand below is asking for more and more data. It's asking, it is definitely going to be biased because the training data is not cured or cleaned or angled. It reads all kinds of data, huge data sets to come up with the decision making. It is a black box. You cannot really understand the decision making algorithms, and then there is no accountability. It is a black box. And on the other side, GDPR is kind of protecting data because they both are at loggerheads. GDPR requires fair processing, limitation of data, minimize the use, and be very transparent so that the trust can be built, and eventually accountability because you have to adhere to all the different data subjects, right? So this slide, I love this slide because it really tells you how much you really want, how responsible you are, and then the requirement of regulation. GDPR is here, but there is lots to do in this area as well. So that takes us to the next slide. I'm just going to rushing through quickly. Next slide. Yeah, balancing privacy and AI. So on the left hand side, you see how can you balance privacy. On the right hand side, you see AI, what AI can do. So together they can basically complement each other. When it comes to privacy, we have different remedies we can use. We can use risk assessment, we can use we can be transparent, we can improve the explainability, we can have audits, and then we can also adhere to all the different regulations, provide DSR rights, improve the consent through disclosures, and then improve the risk tolerance as well. And on the AI side, AI ML models can be more responsible. They can promote ethics. They can continue to fight the bias in the data, follow code of conducts and technical standards, which will govern and have benchmarking as well. So that takes us to the last slide, and I can go back to these based on the questions. But key takeaway is, how do you really navigate this crossroad of data privacy and financial technology landscape? Is you have to understand, respect the rights of data subjects, understand the impact of not only GDPR but financial privacy on data controllers, perform all the due diligence with the remedies available, try to apply privacy preserving mechanisms, and be aware of them as to what innovation is happening. Does it hamper the rights of data subjects? Because governance is an enabler if you use it in the right way. So as per my conclusion, AI and privacy are not enemies. They can complement each other if done in a right way. So there I will stop and then pass it on to Frans.
Yeah, thanks, Anjali, for your insight. Most interesting, of course, but we knew that up front. I now want to introduce you to the second speaker, to Tony Bree. He is going to tell you his experience and insights on the subject. Tony, again, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, there we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being there. Well, my topic of today was actually around the opportunities of AI for new banks and online platforms. But as far as I'm concerned, you can ask me any question you want. To be honest, I'm rather, I think one of the big issues for the time being is that we're all talking about AI, but one AI application is not the same one as the other. I'm going to give you a very quick example there. The Italian regulators have blocked use of ChatGPT for privacy reasons. And although some of their remarks were correct, I was really surprised because the basic ChatGPT application is closed. In terms of, you can't put anything in, it doesn't learn, and it's not connected to anything else. So I was a bit surprised about that, because at the same time, I see that I've got 5 websites, and on average, I'm attacked 300 times per day by robots. And I recently heard that about 90% of the WordPress sites worldwide are attacked, and most of them are not protected. So a lot of data and a lot of other stuff, including passwords and credit card information, is stolen from these websites. And I think, in my personal opinion, that there is not enough attention given to this kind of stuff by the regulators, because if you look at the numbers of breaches there, it's really big. So that's my take on that thing for the time being. Now, so opportunities for new banks and online platforms. What I wanted to do today is a short introduction. I wanted to give you some small stats about OpenAPI and AI and ChatGPT. And then something about, for me, there are also, in terms of risk mitigation and IT and, for instance, data mining kind of things and privacy there. For me, there are 3 different worlds in fintech. Now, my 4th point is opportunities for new banks. Opportunities for online platforms, and I'll just list a number of opportunities, and I'm not really going into specific applications, because as far as I'm concerned, every application has its own characteristics, its own security measures, and so also its own risks. So I think it's very difficult to say something about AI in these terms in general. Now, the next one is opportunities for online platforms. Now, for us Dutch, online platforms, as you probably might know, is old-time stuff, because a number of the first online platforms in the world were actually in the Netherlands. The flower auctions and the fishing auctions and the vegetable auctions. And so there's a lot of experience around security and what are the risks, and a lot of this stuff comes back now on online platforms and in marketplaces. And I wanted to say a few things about opportunities for AI in this area, and then some information about contact and where you can reach me and all that kind of information. Now, so what really I actually had to laugh regularly, because there was a huge discussion going on, including on LinkedIn, on if we should stop for the time being, pause the development of AI. Well, for me personally, that's really a theoretical question. That's interesting behind a glass of wine, but it has nothing to do with reality. Because in reality, the criminals are going on, developing AI at a very high pace. So in my opinion, at the same time, we should also go full swing into this kind of stuff. And at the same time, which I think is very interesting, for me as somebody that started in AI, I think around 1985, for the first time now, actually AI applications are becoming reality for solopreneurs and online entrepreneurs. So I think it's really nice, because we are able to do a lot of stuff. We are in general 1 year ahead of the big companies, and we're really enjoying it, doing a lot of different things. So just to give you an example, in January 2023, there were 57 million users of ChatGPT, and it's what I call the clean stuff. So it's only the thing itself, yeah. And then in February it was more than 100 million. So according to investors, it was valued 14 billion, and it's now 29. And Microsoft has said it would invest 10 billion more on OpenAI. Now, the interesting stuff is that I tried to use OpenAI in Bing as a search engine, and it's really slow. Yeah, so and it gives really funny answers. So I personally am probably not going to use it. But just to show you a bit is that on the one hand, we have big discussions, and correctly, about, privacy and risk and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, the world goes on. Yeah, I remember a lot of these kind of remarks were made when the internet was started. And then a lot of people say, it won't come off the ground and it's too dangerous and that kind of things. But the world went on anyway. So I think, if we want to risk mitigate, that's really important. But we shouldn't be thinking that we could stop it or that we could regulate it in, with normal law. That's something that's really difficult. Now, short introduction, very shortly. We started with expert systems in Amro Bank in 1985. We started to build systems for customers to choose mortgages and to give them advices on products. Then I went to corporate IT strategy of ABN AMRO, and we were responsible for choosing startups and scale-ups, including online platforms for investments for the bank. In 2001, and that's a bit interested in terms of this session, is that in 2001 I was working in offshore banking in ABN AMRO in what we call the offshore tax havens, and we actually introduced a rule-based AI-driven KYC system which was embedded in electronic document management. And actually, the Dutch National, we rolled it out, by the way, worldwide. It was browser-based. And the interesting stuff is that it actually, in the rule basis, it made the differences between the local legislation and the corporate legislation. And so that in general, national legislation goes first. And the interesting thing is that the Dutch regulator came to visit us in all the offices. And they were actually rather pleased, because they just had to look at the rule base I had designed, and they could see, how we actually did KYC and how we actually did CDD. Yeah. So that was really interesting, because from a regulator perspective, it was very transparent what we were doing, and at the same time, we actually were able to ask exactly for the documents that were required locally. Yeah. and all the documents and all the information was stored locally, and it could not be accessed by anybody else from outside of the country. Sorry. Then I went to work for global compliance for international private clients globally. So we had to implement KYC and CDD and anti-money laundering in every country in the world. We actually, just like a lot of other banks, we started to use AI for AML, for transaction monitoring after 2001. Then I went to global clients. It went to customer due diligence in the business of private banking. And my last big trick was splitting up the whole of ABN AMRO. So all documents, all data, and all systems in the KYC domain across the bank towards the three companies that actually bought us. I left the bank in 2011. We started with some French Fintech startup partners. I did Fintech, Future Fintech at MIT. The project that I managed was about blockchain and KYC in a RegTech startup. We've been using AI-based apps since 2020. And since 2023, I'm using Chat GPT clean, like we call it, and about 30 Chat GPT based apps, and it really works well. Yeah, and so that's a bit what I wanted to tell you about that kind of the world. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you look at the data problems and risk and compliance, I think there are three types of companies. You've got the corporate fintechs, that's the big companies. And by experience, I also know that in the big companies, in the financial bank, in financial institutions, in general, we have a lot of trouble with legacy IT and legacy databases. Yeah. Now today, I'm not going to talk about that because for me personally, it's not really interesting because I mean we know what the problems are, we know what the risks are. So today I'm going to focus more on the second and the third type, which is the fintech startups and the fintech scale-ups, because in terms of compliance and organizational changes and impact, and also right skilling and upskilling, I think it's really nice to look at the fintech startups and the scale-ups because they don't have this big legacy. Yeah. So it's not a lot of management. It's not a lot of people, talking about everything. You can actually start all over. So in my personal experience, if you start as a startup or a scale up, just like with the number of new banks in the Netherlands, you can start with with clean ICT, with very modern ICT. It's much more easy actually to limit the risks and to do compliance than if you're in a big company. I generated a list of ideas for AI-driven fintech startups yesterday, and we came up with about 25 or 30 different really nice kind of new banks and online platforms that you could either start yourself or you could combine. Now, here are for me the opportunities for new banks. If you really look at it, one of the biggest things I think is that you see with new banks is that you can use IE, and for me, IE is a technology change. Yeah, so it doesn't say much about the way you organize it, but it's more about the extra things that you can do if you have your data in place and the data is clean and everything is well protected. So what we call that is starting, growing, and scaling, staying small. It's really interesting, by the way, because a few years ago, a guy wrote a book about that staying small was the next thing, big thing in business. Yeah. So you have this one part of the world that is talking about lean and agile and kind of stuff. But all of us, we are occupied with how do we grow the number of customers without becoming a bureaucracy, without becoming too big, without becoming, needing to be lean and agile. So this is really the big thing since a number of years, to grow without growing. Now, another one that also came out of the study that was done by the University of Pennsylvania is that a lot of people are going to be hit by AI, and especially including people in digital marketing and content creation. To give you an example, all the pictures that you see in my presentation are AI generated. Yeah. And that means that, you can do anything you want. You can do content, you can write books, you can do posts on LinkedIn, you can do everything automated. So in digital marketing, it's really going to be a big hit. And in my world of online entrepreneurs, it is pure panic since ChatGPT started. Yeah. Because all the people see their business models and their revenue models actually going down. If you go to Fiverr, you probably know Fiverr. If you don't, go to Fiverr. There is this new huge group of people working online that will do anything for you in terms of content, making movies, making scripts, even writing code. I've got software and it can generate any kind of code that you want. And so it's going to be a huge impact on a lot of different kinds of roles and functions, including in the big companies. Enhanced customer experience management from end to end. Really interesting if you've got the right software in place and also the data. The idea is that you can get a huge amount of personalized experiences for customers. And our idea is that KYC will be embedded with your normal CRM. Yeah. So it will not be something which is separate. I used to be a salesperson. The most horrible thing that you hear from compliance is that you put a lot of time in selecting and getting a lead or trying to get a customer in. And then at the last moment, you hear that you're not allowed. Yeah. So we started to build systems, embedded KYC with CRM already after the beginning of this century, and that really would be nice. Yeah, if that it would be under the ground instead of a different pillar. Then automated compliance, personalized services, products and solutions. I think that's really interesting. It doesn't really matter if it's in consulting or if it's in education or that kind of stuff. We can really make a difference in making personalized services. Now, the next one I think is really interesting because I remember in compliance for a very long time, it didn't really matter if it was AML or if it was KYC, especially KYC. It really took a long time, to risk assess all these different customers and then do it once a year all over again, or after 2 years, or after half a year. So I think a lot of this stuff, if the data and the documents are well structured and can be found, a lot of these things can be done automatically, including, by the way, training people and educating people. Yeah, I think that's really interesting also. Another one is enhanced employee experience management. I think here is something really valuable that we could also do with customer experience management kind of tooling, is that in a lot of companies, there is a shortage of a certain number of people. And I think we can do a lot of stuff with AI in actually managing the complete employee life cycle. From trying to get the right people in, trying to retain the right people, and preventing the wrong people from getting out. Operational efficiency, productivity, and creativity. I think this is really interesting, is that we saw some really nice examples of even decision making in new banks, from top to down, and from customers up to the product development department, can be done really automatically. A lot of stuff is manual work, including by lawyers, for instance, that can be done rather automatically. Productivity is great. I experience it every day, including in my consulting stuff. And creativity is also very high, because I think this is really interesting, is that for new banks, that at the end of the day, it still depends on humans, to see if you got a right match with the customer or not, or if the customer is okay or not. We can automate a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it still stays something human, and we should not be too scared about that. Now, another one is opportunities for online platforms. Like I said, one of the big issues with online platforms is who do you accept on the marketplace? And this has been an issue right from the start, also with the Dutch flower auctions and the fishing auctions, is that, if can somebody deliver and will somebody pay? Yeah. Now, that's really a big issue. Now, so for the online platforms, digital marketing and content creation is really, really nice also to be able to do automatically with different applications of AI, including social media marketing, for instance. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff on doing things automatically on LinkedIn, really not costing a lot of money, around $99. It's amazing. Client selection and monitoring. So you have this online platform, and we really wanted to be, who you want to get on the platform. So KYC of people going on the platform as clients and how they behave, and if they are not criminals or how they behave. So client selection and monitoring is really important on the profile side. So not the transaction side, but the profile side. Again, customer experience management. Business model innovation, really interesting. A lot of different ways to organize the platform, to create content, to go into the multipliers. Really interesting stuff. And again, a lot of these things can be, at the end of the day, automated, which makes creating a marketplace on different levels, including for financial services, technologically, in my opinion, more safe. If you are able to protect the site from all the hackers and the robots that are attacking you on an automatic basis, on a day-to-day basis. Now, the virtual organizing, on the provider side, the supplier side, selection and monitoring. This is really a big issue on online platforms of any type for the time being, is that, are you going to deliver? Who are you? Are you good for the money? Are you going to be paid in time? Didn't you go bankrupt yet? There's a lot of stuff that can be done automatically under the condition that, of course, the databases for instance, with the chambers of commerce or the courts can be automated. Compliance and risk monitoring. I saw a lot of things again in that area. I think it's interesting to see that on a lot of new online platforms, that's very well organized. Yeah. Transaction monitoring on the payment side, and dispute handling. I think the dispute handling is one of the most important issues on the online platforms. So who's right and who is wrong. And that's also a big issue in the Netherlands for the time being, with disputes on electronic marketplaces, which are used by consumers, and a lot of them are ending up before the judges. Now, some of my conclusions and tips. So again, not looking at the big corporate companies, but at new companies, new startups, and fintech startups and scale-ups, including in RegTech, by the way. There are really a lot of opportunities to start all over and to become the digital leaders in AI with different kind of applications. The most concerning thing is, in my opinion, just like it was after 2001, is that a lot of people that are involved in these areas, they should be right-skilled or upskilled, or how do you want to use it? By the way, also the auditors and the people from regulators. My opinion is that it's really good for startups and scale-ups to use non-corporate driven apps, methods, and tools. They're really sophisticated, often very well maintained, and very clear and transparently built, and much cheaper than the ones from the big companies. Don't automate the old, but make the new. Don't waste your precious time, energy, and money discussing AI, including on LinkedIn. For me, it's just like doing it and seeing and learning from each other and using that. And then to finalize this one and round it up, you can always call me at PM me on LinkedIn. I have a number of sites, but they're all in extreme makeover because of the AI developments, which is really fun on the one hand, because you can start all over. And on the other hand, we're full-time occupied with trying to protect them against all the attacks. Every time I put something on LinkedIn, which is a bit nasty towards the people that have invaded Ukraine, I get attacked by robots on my sites, and I can see where they're coming from. Got any questions, just call me, send me a PM, or of course, in the session now with Frans and Anjali. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Tony, for sharing your thoughts and insights. Was insightful to call to link like that. Well, this brings me to the last speaker, and that's me. I drew the short straw. So my title is Stay Ahead of the Curve by Mitigating AI-Based Risks in Fintech. Now, I immediately thought when we were discussing the webinar, I immediately thought of the classic Western movie with Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Well, we heard some good things, and we heard also some ugly things, but I want to have a look at the bad things because they happen too. But you can use AI for good things, but hey, if we can use AI for the good things, then bad people can use AI for the bad things. So first question, of course, is, does it happen? Has it been proven that it's happening? Well, I did investigate and found out that the University of Maryland and Berkeley, for example, they published a paper not only showing, but also proving that they were successful in bypassing an advanced machine learning-based malware detection system. Just by creating malicious code, that was specifically designed to bypass AI-powered security systems. The other University of Virginia, for example, they demonstrated how they used AI-powered fraud detection system vulnerabilities to insert false records into a hospital database. And that one is a doozy. Inserted records in a database. This, I think, is dangerous. Another group of researchers from the University of Michigan this time demonstrated how they were able to insert false or altered data into AI-powered fraud detection systems. That is also a doozy. They inserted data. I mean, if you can insert data, you can insert anything in there. And an AI system isn't going to protect you against it because they do, the bad guys use also AI to detect how the AI systems of the banks or Fintech industry is working and which rules they are using. So what did I learn? If we have a look at the attack vectors and try to understand what these researchers found out. The first attack vector is, of course, AI can generate fake identities and or behavior patterns. That seems very obvious. And the second one is that AI can also investigate AI-based systems, how and which patterns they use and what behaviors they are watching to detect a fraud. Also, AI can be used to overload systems with fraudulent requests or multiple identities simultaneously to try to open up the system to infiltrate and compromise the KYC and AML system from within. And that is what I just said. That's a doozy. If I can insert data, then I can insert data in the AML rules. I can insert data in the KYC rules. And that really is quite dangerous. But let's see how banks do that, or fintech does it nowadays. When we look at the three questions that banks try to answer. If you look at CDD and KYC, AML, they try to answer three questions. The first one is, who is the person talking to me or wants to do business with us? You want to know the identity. The second question you ask is always, hey, do I want to do business with this person? Once you establish that he can become a customer, the third question is, do I want to continue to do business with this person? If you, because today I'm a nice guy, but tomorrow, hey, I can change into a bad guy. So you must stop the transactions. So these are the three basic questions, but let's have a look at the identity. Most systems, I think 99% of the systems use AI to detect fake identities. How do they do that? Because identity documents are being used. Fintech is based on identity documents. Well, the answer is simple. An AI system looks at the page of the identity document, sees the data page with your name, first name, date of birth, and everything. And then it sees the MRZ. It also searches for patterns on the page. Hey, but patterns, I can look for patterns too, and I can copy that and use, for example, photocopy of AI to make a new passport, to make a new document. I can insert data in there that is perfectly correct. So if you do that, an AI system looks at it, it will determine that it's a good document. Some systems are a bit smarter. They say, okay, we need the NFC chip. So when you read the NFC chip and add that to the equation, then you can say, okay, all three factors seem to be okay. The question is this document real? And you cannot confirm that, because even when you look at the security elements, attributes on the passport, even when all the data is correct, the only thing you know is that the document is produced correctly. That's the only thing you know. You don't know if it's authentic. So an AI system based his conclusion or his advice on models it has on a database. It looks very similar to something that we know that is real. Hey, do you really want to know that it looks something similar to something that is real? Or do you want to know if it's real? Well, let's assume that you are able to see that it's real. There are systems that can do that. 100% assurance. Identity is real. Identity document is A-OK. Authenticity is okay. It's not being changed, so it's not being compromised. The integrity is okay, and the validity is okay as well. So you know 100%. When you do that, if you have a system like that, then you can use any AI system you want, making fake identities. You won't succeed. You are stopped at the front door because the document doesn't pass muster. It doesn't have the electronic signature of that country. It has been altered. It has been copied. It has been spoofed. You can all see that just using the PKI and the PKD environment. So that is an easy stop. But now look at the learning the patterns and behaviors. Does it make any sense? Because why should I want to learn the patterns and behaviors of an AI-based system when I already stopped the fake identities at the front door? Fake identity, you use a fake identity. You want to bypass this AI system when you're using a fake identity because you don't want to be detected by the AI system as being a fraud. So that stops it, I think, as well. Then overloading a system, you can only overload a system when you can bypass the front door. So if you are able to stop the transactions going and coming to your system, including the fraudulent request, then you cannot overload the system itself. So the system itself will always be running and up-to-date and accurate, and it will stop anything that comes through, because most things are stopped at the front door. The doozy, on the other hand, is if one infiltrates and compromises the KYC and AML system. Let's say, for example, you can insert data in there saying that, hey, if Frans Bolk passes, okay him. Now that's a simple rule. It's data. You can put that in a database. So each time when I use my passport, and I have an automatic flyby. So that is the simple thing. So that is about the vectors. So how can you protect against it? Also against AI attacks? Well, the answer is also you need a strong architecture. And what we learned from building our trust center is that you really need a zero trust architecture. Zero trust architecture says, don't trust anything. Don't trust anybody. Protect everything. So what we have done is everything has an identity. People have an identity, of course, but the net infrastructure as well, infrastructure, the data, the application, devices, everything has an identity. Everything is signed. Everything is protected. All data in transport is being signed and encrypted. Not only the technical connection is mutually authenticated and encrypted, and the content over it is also signed, but also the content itself is being signed, mutually authenticated, and fully encrypted. So it's multiple layers of protection. You do that with also the devices. They have an identity. If the identity changes, forget it. It doesn't work. Networking the same. In our internal environment, even the internal systems, when they communicate with each other, they use this principle. We don't trust nothing. So that means that everything is protected this way. And I think that this is a robust way of protecting against AI attacks. And but this is not a simple thing to accomplish. This took a lot of thinking, a lot of work, also programming, not even, but also programming to make it right, to make it happen. And we use that as our trust anchor for verifying identities. So that's the best advice I can give you. Use the zero trust architecture. Use also for privacy. Use the zero knowledge proof to get us to protect the privacy of the people. Use decentralized identities. Only store the identity information on the phone of the user. I mean, hey, then the user is in full control, and you respect his privacy. He controls everything. He can say, okay, leave, he leaves. He can say, I want to become customer, he becomes a customer. It's as easy as that. Of course, you as a company, you must keep records. You keep the name of the customer and everything, because you need to keep records, and you need to prove that you have done everything correctly. But hey, that's something different. So, the conclusion I have is that remember that AI technology evolves. So will the tactics used by attackers making it essential to stay up to date? You really need to stay up to date. Some resources you can use is, for example, the AI Security Alliance, the attack of Mitra, the adversarial machine learning repository of IBM, for example, but also AI Village and OpenAI. And there are many resources around that you can use, that you can read about. Keep yourself informed. Use your mind, use your logic to protect yourself. And remember also that AI is constantly evolving, so the attacks also. So stay informed and keep up to date on the latest threats and defenses. Well, that is my piece of the story. So thanks for your time. And I see that we have about 5 minutes for answering some questions that came in. Let us see. Already some questions answered, I see. Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you, Anjali. In your opinion, what are some of the most exciting developments in AI that could impact data privacy and risk mitigation in fintech in the coming years? And I do have the same question for you as well, Tony. Anjali, you switched off your phone, your microphone.
Is transforming the financial, and as I cover.
I lost.
Me too, yeah.
Okay. Tony, maybe you can answer the question, that same question for you.
Yeah, no, I think that, like I said during my little presentation, I think that I think the big issue is, on the one hand, what can you do with it as a company to serve your customers better, and at the same time, the attacks from outside are so huge that I think that at the end of the day, it's not so much on topic of AI, but it's on the topic of ICT, of how do you protect your company. And that's why I took the example of all the websites which are around. It's really, it's a full-time challenge to fence off the attack. And I must admit, I'm really positive about what can be done. On the other hand, what I'm concerned about, and that, for instance, in the Netherlands, actually the government is not very well protected. Yeah. So if you look at all the ransomware attacks, very often they are in universities or in government agencies. And I asked the question the other day to the person who was responsible for KYC in government. And I think that there's a really big issue on how to protect the data, and the information that the government and the other public authorities are actually storing around about us. Yeah. So I'm rather positive about all the things that can be done. We also have to be realistic, because if you take the example of AML, a lot of these things cannot be done by us humans anymore. Things are going so fast.
Yeah.
I gave you the example of my modest sites. I mean, I have to update all kinds of software every day because I'm continuously under attack by robots. Yeah. So I'm rather positive, but my personal opinion is that we really should put a lot more high-level resources and money also in not big banks and not big financial institutions, because a lot of the public databases, including of the chambers of commerce, they're not really well protected. Yeah. So I think that if we want to counterattack a lot of problems, there should be much more high-level resources, including money and knowledge and experience, into the public sector. And I remember from my time at ABN AMRO is that at a certain amount of time, I think we had 2,500 people working in KYC, and we had a huge amount of people in IT, and we didn't manage to keep our data clean, and we had a whole department in trying to fend off all the attacks. And it costs a huge amount of money that that most companies just actually don't have. So that's why I'm rather positive about AI the kind of applications, for small and medium-sized companies, because that's what I'm now looking at. Because most of these companies, they just don't have the funds and the knowledge, to buy all this expensive consultancy and all this expensive software from the big companies. So my attention is really towards the SMEs and that kind of companies, because they're the engine of our economy, and I think we should put much more emphasis and attention to them instead of only looking at the big companies. That's my opinion, and I think that even in the big companies, including the big banks, I remember that some of my colleagues were running around with USB sticks, and some of the laptops were closed and others were not, and it used to be rather easy to circumvent that part of the security. So
sneak around.
Yes, I think that. So I'm rather positive, and I will really be looking forward, to work more together. My former world of the big companies and the world I'm now in, because I think that most of the AI innovation will come from the startups and the scale-ups, and not from the big companies.
Yeah.
So
I agree totally with that, Tony. I want to give Anjali also the opportunity to finish what she was saying, because suddenly was.
What I'll do is I'll quickly combine all the questions together regarding AI and privacy. Is definitely yes. You can do good AI with proper privacy. Internal to your company or organization, you can have responsible AI governance organization, sub-organization, or multiple stakeholders who work with all the development or engineering organizations to model the AI, govern the AI models, make sure there is fairness, transparency, all that during the development, during the release, during the deployment as well, and have privacy, risk, security, observability, all these functions work together to strengthen the remedies which I discussed, like risk management, assessments, and security and explainability as well together. So every time a model is required, it needs to be transparent, accountable, fair, measure the bias, have different KPIs and benchmark it, and then eventually you'll be able to get best of both the worlds.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's time for one last answer, Tony. That was a question addressed to you. So.
Okay, that's so. I saw the question on some of my tips on AI and startups. Well, I think that the most important thing, I think, is that that you really have to look at starting all over with IT. Remember that there is a lot of software around which is not coming from the big corporate IT companies. It's one of the things I learned when I left the bank in 2011, is that that I didn't know all that world around that kind of company. So my tips would be to start at a rather low level with some applications. Make your security rather tight. It makes sense to look around. For instance, I'm using hosting companies that are not at all the big ones. They're really secure. We're checking them all the time, and that makes a lot of difference. I think what's also really important when you start with a fintech startup is that you really look at what we call digital blue oceans. Yeah. And I'm just, for the time being, I'm writing ebooks just about that, because the market share is not interesting, to be honest. My boss at ABN AMRO once said, if you're big in the wrong market, you should get out of it. Yeah. There are a huge amount of niches around on the internet that are not served or badly served by financial institutions. Yeah. I remember when we started to look at PayPal just before they started. Yeah. All these people, they have been going into niches where where the big banks didn't want to go into because it was too expensive. And I think that's for me really important, is that you really look at customers. You really look at how can you create value for customers. And there's one last thing I wanted to say about disruption. There's a little book that I really like from Bernadette Yiwa. And what she says is that if you know who you are, you don't have to compete. Yeah. My impression always has been, and my challenge is to disrupt the lives of my customers in a positive way. So if you avoid competition with the big ones, yeah, there are a huge amount of opportunities in financial services, for a huge amount of people that are badly served by the big players. Yeah, and remember, that's the way PayPal started, and that's the way a lot of the online platforms that I helped in the last 5-6 years started. They really focused on disrupting the lives of their customers. Yeah. And you really have to look at, as a company, so why me? You know, why should people do business with me? And then it comes back to, as a startup with AI, it all comes back to your relevant knowledge. Yeah. So that's that. Some of my tips are, look around, do purchasing in the right way. You know, don't go for the big companies all the time. Ask your customers what they want. Pivot all the time. You know, we're pivoting all the time. We're starting new things. I only do solutions, and I only do things that customers ask me to do. Yeah. I don't have bright ideas. Everybody who's doing all right now in this crisis, we are asking our customers all the time, what do they want? Yeah, everything is on demand. I don't have employees. People ask me on LinkedIn all the time, do you hire staff? I said, for God's sake, no. Yeah, because we have this network of people worldwide that are working, you know, as a kind of ecosystem together. If I have trouble with my sites, I hire people from India to repair it. Yeah, they're really great. Got some ladies from the Middle East that are great in repairing things, in doing videos. You know, we're all these people in the world, and start your startup and grow it. You know, with using the right tools, the right people, and really look at what people need. I always say to my students, I've got ideas all day. Most of them are crap. Yeah, because I forgot to ask my clients. Yeah, so that's the idea that I would like to give. And again, you know, AI is hitting digital marketing and customer experience like crazy. Yeah, every day I'm flabbergasted about what I'm able to do on my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's positive, but really look at your security of your sites. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Anjali, do you have anything to add to that?
I would again say security and privacy go hand in hand and affect the risk. So AI is there. There is no option without AI. But if you do it with all the due diligence, applying all the measures consistently, then it is a good combination, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
balance
Okay.
of both. But thank you.
Yeah, this ends, I think, our webinar. We are 8 minutes late, I see. Sorry for that, folks. But hey, Tony and Anjali, thanks for your time and your insights, and all the people.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, you're most
Thank
welcome.
you for inviting.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all the insights.
And also the people watching, having the patience to listen to us. I hope they picked up the good things. And I'll see you next time. So thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.